Let me tell you a story. Last year, a brilliant founder in Nairobi poured $50,000 into building an AI agent for maternal health. And look, by all accounts, it was a technical marvel. The whole project was born from a very real, very urgent need. It was funded with hope, and it was built by some of the sharpest engineers I've ever had the privilege to know. It was fluent. It was empathetic. I mean, it could answer every single question a new mother could possibly have, and it answered them perfectly. It was trained on terabytes of medical data, fine-tuned to understand local dialects, and designed to be this comforting, knowledgeable companion. But then came the moment of truth. A mother in a remote village, miles from the nearest clinic, her phone battery blinking low and her voice trembling with panic, asked the one question that really mattered. Can you book me an ambulance? I'm sorry, I can't do that. 7 words. Think about that. In the quiet of that village, those 7 words were a catastrophic failure. And this wasn't just some technical glitch, it was a fundamental failure of the entire promise. You have this system, the end result of months of work and a huge investment designed to be a lifeline at the most critical moments, and at that one single most critical moment, it offers an apology instead of an action. It could talk about the problem with perfect clarity. Sure, it could explain the symptoms of preeclampsia. It could offer comforting words. But it couldn't solve the problem. It couldn't make the call. It was a library when what she needed was a lever. So, the fundamental question we have to ask ourselves is, why? Why did this incredibly intelligent, expensive, and well-intentioned system fail so completely at the one moment it was truly needed? The answer? Well, it's not a simple bug. You're not going to find it in a log file or fix it with a couple lines of code. No, the answer goes much deeper. It goes right to the foundation of what we're all trying to build in this new age of AI. The failure was conceptual. It was a mistaken understanding, a flaw in the architectural blueprint that was made long before a single line of code was ever written. And it's a mistake that is being made right now in boardrooms and on engineering teams all over the world. That single failure, that one sentence, cost $50,000. But the true cost, oh, it was so much higher. You see, $50,000 is just the burn rate, the salaries, the cloud computing costs, the software licenses. The real cost was measured in the wasted months of brilliant engineering talent focused on completely the wrong problem. It was measured in the opportunity cost of what they could have built in that time. And maybe most importantly, it was measured in the trust of a user who reached out for help and was turned away by a machine that could only give her words. This isn't just one story about one startup. It's a cautionary tale for our entire industry. And here it is. Here's the root of the problem, the core of that $50,000 failure. They built a chatbot, and they called it an agent. They confused a system that can talk with a system that can act. Today, I'm going to reveal phase 1 of the 10-phase journey to Master Agentic AI. Understand what Agentic AI really means. And look, this isn't about semantics. This isn't about arguing over definitions just for the sake of it. This is the fundamental difference between AI that talks and AI that acts. And understanding this difference, really internalizing it until it becomes second nature, that is the first and most crucial step to building anything of real value in this new era. I'm Marcel Masaga. I'm an AI engineer, a 5-time founder, and a fractional CTO. For over 20 years, I've been in the trenches building real-world AI systems, from diagnostic tools used in East African clinics to bootstrap startups that won global awards. I've mentored founders, advised investors, and I've served on 5 global AI ethics bodies, all of it trying to answer just one question. How do we build AI that doesn't just work, but actually matters? This is the Global AI Engineer, where we cut through the hype, we think deeper, and we build wiser in the age of artificial intelligence. Okay, so let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we're going to dig deeper into the 50K mistake to really understand the gap between talking and acting. Then we'll establish a powerful new way to think about this: worker, not a writer. From there, I'm going to give you a practical tool you can use right away, the Clarity Matrix, to diagnose any AI system for yourself. Next, we'll get into the high cost of confusion, looking at the real-world damage this simple mistake can cause. Then, we'll find a solution in an unexpected place with Nairobi's Pragmatic Antidote. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the foundation of mastery to see why this first phase is the key that unlocks everything else. So, let's start with that $50,000 mistake. The heart of this story isn't just about a failed feature. It's about a failed premise. It's about this massive, often invisible gap between an AI that can process and generate language with stunning fluency and an AI that can take that language and actually execute a task in the real world. One is a conversational partner. The other is a functional tool. The team in Nairobi built a brilliant conversational partner.
By all measures, it was a state-of-the-art chatbot. But what that mother in the village needed wasn't a partner to talk with. She needed a tool that would act for her. Now, what's really interesting here is how seriously we take this distinction. This isn't just some theoretical point for me, it's a core operational principle. At my company, SIHA AI, we have a hard and fast rule. We do not let our engineers write one single line of agent code until they pass phase 1, until they can prove through conversation and through practical examples that they fundamentally get this difference. Why are we so strict about it? Because if you confuse an agent with a chatbot at the start of a project, you will, inevitably, build vaporware. You will build a beautiful, articulate system that, in the end, just delegates the real work back to the user, exactly like the system in Nairobi did. This isn't a suggestion, it's a gate. It's the required foundation before any real building can begin. So let's get crystal clear on what that foundation is. To fix this, we need a new way of thinking. We need a new definition. The industry is just flooded with these complex academic definitions of agentic AI, full of jargon like percepts and actuators and utility functions. But honestly, those definitions often miss the point when you're trying to build a real product. We need something simple, something powerful, and something grounded in reality. We need to move beyond the idea of an AI as a conversationalist and embrace a totally new model, the AI as a worker. An agent is not a chatbot. A chatbot responds. An agent acts. Here is the single most important definition I can possibly give you. An agent is a worker, not a writer. In Nairobi, when I'm training new engineers, this is the very first concept they learn. Think about it like this: a clinic nurse. When you come in with symptoms, she doesn't just describe malaria, she takes a blood sample and tests for it. She's a worker. A medical textbook, on the other hand, can describe malaria perfectly. It's a writer. The AI in our story was a perfect medical textbook, but what the user needed was a nurse. A worker takes your request and performs an action to change the state of the world. A writer takes your request and just gives you information about the world. That is agency. It's the ability to perform an action, not just describe it. So what does this worker look like on a technical level? Well, a true agent is a system with 5 core, non-negotiable components. First, you've got the LLM, the large language model. That's the brain. It does the reasoning, the planning. Second, you have prompts. These are the instructions we give the brain, defining its role, its goal, its constraints. Third, and this is the absolute game changer, you have tools. These are the hands. These are the APIs that let the agent actually do things, book a calendar event, send an SMS, process a payment, or, in our case, call an ambulance service. Without tools, an agent is all brain and no hands. It can think, but it can't act. Fourth is memory. This is like the patience chart. It needs short-term memory for the current conversation and long-term persistent memory to recall past interactions. And finally, there's the environment. This is the clinic itself, the context where the agent runs. Take away any one of these 5 components, and you don't have an agent. You have a script with a personality.
All right, now I want to give you a practical tool to take with you, something you can use to cut right through the marketing hype and see these systems for what they really are. I call it the Clarity Matrix. It's a simple diagnostic tool for escaping what I call the Chatbot Trap, a pitfall that consumes millions of dollars and countless hours of work across our entire industry.
The Chatbot Trap is the single biggest reason why so many of these so-called AI agents fail. It's the act of confusing fluency with function. We see a system that can talk like a human, and we automatically, subconsciously, just assume it can act like one. The world is drowning in these systems. I saw a pitch from a personal assistant startup that had raised $2 million. In the demo, the founder said, "Schedule a meeting with Sarah." And the AI came back with this beautifully written response: "Of course, I've drafted an email for you to send to Sarah to schedule the meeting. You can copy and send it from your email client." That's not agency. That is just delegation back to the user. It's a wonderfully fluent response that does zero work. They fell right into the trap because they prioritized conversation over action, and they skipped the hard work of integrating tools. In East Africa, we simply can't afford that luxury. When a mother asks for help, the AI has to act, not just suggest. So this is the matrix. It's a simple side-by-side comparison that lays the difference bare. Let's just walk through it. A chatbot's goal is to answer questions. Its purpose is informational. An agent's goal, on the other hand, is to complete a task. Its purpose is operational. A chatbot's output is text. An agent's output is an action, followed by a confirmation that the action was completed. This is so key. It closes the loop. A chatbot has no tools. An agent has tools. A calendar API, an SMS gateway, a payment processor, it has hands. A chatbot's memory is session only. It forgets you as soon as you close the window.
An agent's memory is persistent and contextual. It knows who you are. And the examples make it perfectly clear. A chatbot can explain diabetes. An agent can book a diabetes screening at Clinic X for Thursday. One gives you information, the other produces an outcome.
Now, if you want to boil this entire matrix, this whole concept, down to a single, powerful diagnostic question, here it is. Whenever you're evaluating an AI system, whether you're in a pitch meeting, a product demo, or on your own engineering team, just ask yourself this one question. Does it require a tool to complete the task? If the answer is no, it's a chatbot. It's operating only within the world of language. But if the answer is yes, if it needs to connect to an external system, an API, to fulfill the user's request, then you're looking at a true agent. This isn't just being picky about words. It's about precision. Because as we're about to see, clarity in definition prevents chaos in design. This leads us directly to the consequences. Why does this distinction matter so much? Because the cost of getting it wrong is enormous, far beyond the initial budget. When you set out to build an agent, but you're actually designing a chatbot, you create this ripple effect of failure throughout the entire project. Your architecture will be wrong, your user expectations will be completely misaligned, your team will be chasing a goal they can't technically achieve with the path they're on, and your investors' capital will be incinerated in the process. These are the real costs of building the wrong thing. First, there's the wasted engineering time. I'm talking months, even years, spent building a conversational interface that can't actually do the core thing the business needs. Then you've got broken user trust. Remember the mother in Nairobi? She's not going to trust that system again. When you promise action and deliver only words, you damage your relationship with your users, sometimes irreparably. This leads, almost inevitably, to failed startups. Businesses that are built on the promise of agency but can only deliver conversation will not survive in the long run. And finally, there are the ethical missteps. In fields like healthcare or finance, promising to do something critical and then failing, that isn't just bad business. It's a dangerous ethical breach with real-world human consequences. And this is not theoretical. As a fractional CTO and an advisor, I have personally seen 12 startups fail for this exact reason. 12 companies. And these weren't bad ideas or foolish founders. They were brilliant people with talented engineers and great ideas that went under because they made this one foundational mistake. They built a chatbot and called it an agent. They raised money on the promise of action, but they delivered only conversation, and the market eventually always sees the difference. My fix, what I enforce with every team I work with, is to make phase 1 a gate. No engineer on my team moved to phase 2, to actually building, until they can define an agent in their own words, build a simple demo that integrates a real tool, and pass the agent versus chatbot test every single time. Because you simply cannot master what you don't first understand. Now, there is a solution. There is an antidote to all this hype and confusion. And ironically, we find it right back where our story began, in Nairobi. There's a way of thinking born from necessity and real-world constraints that naturally forces the kind of clarity we've been talking about. It's a pragmatic approach that serves as a powerful corrective to the hype cycles we often see elsewhere. It's a mindset forged by reality, not by marketing.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the difference. In Silicon Valley, the first question is very often, can it scale? It's a question about massive user growth, venture returns, and abstract potential. It's a good question, but it's not the first one we ask. In Nairobi, the first question we ask is, will it work when the power goes out? That's a question grounded in the reality of our infrastructure and the daily lives of our users. And that single question changes everything. It forces you to think about robustness, about offline capability, about simplicity. When your user is a grandmother in Kakamega with a $50 feature phone and spotty connectivity, you don't have time for AI theater. You need AI that acts reliably every single time. This pragmatism leads to a completely different set of design principles. First, our agents often need to run offline, or at least function in low-bandwidth environments. Second, we use tools that are everywhere and reliable, like SMS and USSD, not just fancy web APIs. Third, and this is so critical, our agents are designed to escalate to a human when they get stuck. They have a built-in fallback. They're part of a human-machine team, not a replacement for it. And this leads to the ultimate principle. A well-designed pragmatic agent should never have to say, I can't do that. It should always have a path forward, whether that's doing the task itself or intelligently handing it off to a human who can. This isn't less advanced AI. It's more human, more robust, and ultimately more helpful. And it's why I believe the next wave of sovereign, frugal AI is being led from places just like this. And so we arrive at the end of our first phase. And I want to be very clear.
What we've discussed today, this distinction between a chatbot and an agent, it isn't just an introductory step or a piece of trivia. It is the foundation of everything that comes next in the journey to mastering agentic AI. It's the concrete slab upon which the entire structure is built. If this foundation is cracked, everything you build on top of it will eventually crumble.
If you skip this phase, if you rush into building without this fundamental clarity, your agent will talk beautifully, but it will ultimately do nothing of value. You'll end up right back at that $50,000 failure. But if you master this phase, if you truly internalize this difference between words and work, you unlock the genuine power to build AI that actually helps people. AI that books, that sends, that diagnoses, that decides. In a world that is drowning in AI noise and marketing hype, this simple clarity, that is your superpower.
So I want to leave you with this one final thought. The thesis of this entire explainer. Never confuse words with work. The future of AI, the future of this entire field, will not be built by systems that are merely articulate. It will be built by systems that are useful. It will be built by agents. So start here, build wisely, and never ever confuse words with work. If you found this valuable, do 3 things for me. 1, hit like below. It tells YouTube this content matters. 2, subscribe and hit the bell, because next week I'm revealing Phase 2, learn core components of an agent. 3, check out my latest explainer. Stop calling yourself a prompt engineer. Here's what a real AI engineer actually does. It's already changing how engineers and founders are thinking about AI. I'm Marcel Masaga. Thanks for being part of the global AI engineer. Until next time, think deeper, build wiser, lead with courage.